So Mike and I are going to first look at some DraftKings teams and talk about the strategy there. So DraftKings, it's different than FanDuel in the sense you have two pitchers. So that's going to greatly affect your strategy. So you really want to get high-scoring pitchers. That's the fundamental base for all DFS MLB. Pitchers are going to be your highest scoring players almost on all occasions, and you're going to be the most consistent and most predictable. As you know, or may not know, baseball players, even the best players, Mike Trout, Giancarlo Stanton, can occasionally go 0 for 3 and will have many of those games 0 for 4 all season. Whereas the top pitchers really aren't going to have that many games that are going to hurt you. And so in that sense, you really want to focus on pitchers. So 2 on DraftKings, and they generally have a little higher salary than FanDuel. You're going to kind of figure out whether you want to go 2 high-end studs, 2 mid-price players, go 2 cheap. Generally, you got to take everything by case basis, but in general, it's really not a good idea to kind of go for the 2 cheap pitchers because there generally is not going to be that top-end hitters all through your lineup that are going to kind of make up for your lost pitching points. So yeah, every slate is different, but that's one thing that I generally wouldn't do, and especially not in cash games.
And what about for hitters? So what are the differences in picking DraftKings hitters versus FanDuel?
Yeah, so DraftKings hitters, their scoring system is similar, but DraftKings, you don't get as much points for runs, RBIs, and walks. Those are worth 2 points on DraftKings, 3 points on FanDuel, whereas singles are both 3 points on both sites. So you really want to kind of focus on hitters that are more likely to get hits. I think that's fairly obvious, and they're very, very close. You still want to focus on the same things, but players that get a lot more walks and RBIs are going to be slightly less valuable on DraftKings than they are on FanDuel.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, you still definitely want to target the same things. In pitchers, there are some differences. In FanDuel, the win is worth a lot more than DraftKings. DraftKings, you also get negatives for hits and walks, whereas on FanDuel, you don't. So DraftKings, you really want to focus on pitchers that are going to strike out a lot, which is both on both sides, but don't give as much hits and walks. It may be a little less likely to get the win than pitchers you target on FanDuel, where it's really important to get the win. So a win on FanDuel is worth 12 points. A win on DraftKings is worth 4 points. So that's a pretty substantial difference. So
when looking at these DraftKings lineups, that the baseline here coming from Baseball Prospectus, which these projections, the Coda projections, really popular, and also you can only find them here at RotoQL. Sahil, what do you think of some of these players? Are there any hitters in mind that get on base a lot that you would like to add for DraftKings?
yeah, no, I think today you're kind of getting into the deeper part of the rotation. So there's not as many top end studs on pitcher wise. So you're really going to have to find some good hitters. You know that Arizona is a pretty favorable ballpark. Especially Arizona rotation, I think now is the 4th man in. So generally those are situations you want to target the end of the rotation. So here, really, 7,500, 8,300, I think Baldo Jimenez and Lackey are both pretty decent picks. I think I'd probably try to go with Salazar. We'll see how the slate progresses, what the lineups are. But I think that would be a better option. But I think here, even still, you're looking at 2 relatively mid-range pitchers, so you're going to have a lot to spend on hitters today.
Hmm. And what about hopping over to FanDuel? Um, if you were to check out, knowing that there's only one pitcher to choose for your lineups and emphasis on wins, obviously, does the thought process change?
Yeah, so I mean, let's just take a look at the baseline on FanDuel. So here we're going to go with Salazar. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Pitchers score a lot more points on FanDuel, so you're one pitcher, pretty much always advisable to go for top end stud on FanDuel. Um, in tournaments, you'll generally see the top pitcher of the night, which is fairly clear on most nights, is going to be the most highly owned.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to get a little different there in tournaments, it makes sense, but in cash games, FanDuel makes it really simple to have a rule of thumb, which is just pick the best pitcher, and then kind of see what follows. So here, the pricing is different. The salary cap is $35,000 on FanDuel versus $50K on DraftKings. So that's obviously going to make things look a little different, but
Yeah.
so obviously hitter salaries are going to be depressed throughout. Pitcher salaries are going to be somewhat similar, just because FanDuel only has one pitcher, and that pitcher is going to score a lot more points.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And also, just wanted to add here that we are looking at the first lineups, the most optimal lineups according to Baseball Prospectus, which can serve as a good baseline for you. But definitely don't recommend just taking these face value and putting them into FanDuel or DraftKings. You're definitely going to want to make some of your own changes and add players that you think are going to have a great night. So, with that said, Sile, are there any changes that you want to make? Maybe some guys that you would exclude from these?
Yeah, starting out, I think these look pretty decent. I think one thing we're gonna want to make sure is what the batting orders are going to be. I'm not a huge fan of playing Elvis Andrus in this spot. Bottom of the lineup against the Angels. I really do like Chris Davis in this spot against Phil Hughes. Fastball pitcher, gives up a lot of home runs, a lot of fly balls, and Chris Davis loves to match the ball. So I think that's definitely a good solid pick. And then we'll see. There's always going to be value that opens up if someone unexpected bats near the top of the lineup, and that will definitely shake things up.
Mm-hmm.
But let's see. I mean, if we remove Andrus. We get Segura, so I think Segura batting first would be a better option. You're gonna get away from McCann and get into Miguel Montero, but I think that might be a better lineup. We'll have to see what these actual batting orders affect things. Batting 7th to batting 6th is going to be a pretty big boost to your projection. Getting more at bats obviously is going to always increase your points, especially since FanDuel got away from the negative scoring for outs. So really, as you can see, we have 2 leadoff hitters, batting second, a batting third, and then kind of fill in with some of the value with 6th and 7th. But you really want to avoid players batting 8th and 9th if you can.
Yeah, so I guess just wrapping up, with FanDuel not accounting for outs anymore, how does that change the thinking when selecting hitters?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can worry a little bit less about hitters that have low on-base percentages, obviously, because that's not going to hurt you if they get out, and focus more on hitters that are going to give you a lot of extra base hits.
Mm-hmm.
So a player like Adam Dunn, who's, I guess, the most famous boom or bust player, I think, no longer in the league. But also a player like Miguel Sano, who's going to have a lot of home runs, a lot of strikeouts. Those players are going to be more valuable on FanDuel than they have been in previous years.
It's a great point. Yeah, so you can build both DraftKings and FanDuel lineups through Baseball Prospectus. We have Razzball projections through that are powered by Steamer and DFS Guru, among other projections. So check that out and make sure you know how to strategize for both DraftKings and FanDuel MLB.